And joining us now to talk about that trial, Simpson's former legal counsel. He's the author of Excellence in Cross-Examination, F. Lee Bailey. Counselor, we welcome you back to America's Forum. We thank you for taking time to be with us today via Skype.
Thank you.
Counselor, looking back 20 years ago, whatever is said about OJ Simpson, we take a look at his resume, an outstanding athlete, someone who got involved in acting and sportscasting, became an advertising spokesman, immensely popular. When you worked with him, did he bring the mindset of an athlete to preparation for his legal defense? What was your interaction with the defendant?
Well, I don't think that his history as an athlete really factored into it. OJ is very bright. He understood the problem he was in. He deeply resented it. But generally, he cooperated very well with the defense lawyers throughout the proceedings and had some input of his own from time to time, which, unlike that of many clients, was not off the wall at all.
Well, we just took a look at scenes, Counselor, what transpired 20 years ago today. It's being described as a car chase, a pursuit. I understand that you take a look at that and you differ with the characterization of that as a car chase. How do you describe what happened 20 years ago today with OJ and the Ford Bronco?
Well, I was watching the entire thing on television based on a tip from Bob Shapiro that OJ had gone off somewhere, but a low-speed chase is an oxymoron of the worst kind. There was no chase. It was discovered that OJ and Al Cowlings were in Cowlings' white Bronco, Cowlings driving, OJ in the back seat, with a .357 Magnum, despondent, having just visited his ex-wife's grave. And Cowlings kept telling the cops, keep your distance or he's likely to use that gun. We are going home to surrender. And that's where they had always been going. So the cops just kind of tagged along. I think a fair word would be escort, but chase gives them entirely too much credit.
Well, the helicopters and the news camera crews didn't help the situation because they called it the chase at the time, too. But, Mr. Bailey, I wanted to ask you, we also played that clip of Johnny Cochran saying, if it doesn't fit, you must acquit. And
Yes.
that gets a lot of the credit for the verdict here in this case. But when you saw that and when you heard the OJ's attorney using that in this case, did you know at that point that it had been decided and that he was going to be not guilty in this case?
Oh, he had pled guilty a long time ago. I am the one who provoked Christopher Darden into demanding that OJ try on the glove by saying to him that he was kind of a jerk. And if he didn't have OJ try the glove on, which wouldn't fit, then I would. And he jumped to the bait. Judge Ito came back in the courtroom. He said, I want to try the glove on now. Johnny Cochran said, in front of the jury. And Darden said yes, and Judge Ito permitted it. It was a disaster, as Darden has recently admitted. I wish I hadn't done it.
And so for you, was that the moment in which you knew that the case had turned in OJ's favor? Exactly that moment when he tried the glove on?
No, I knew the case had turned in OJ's favor when the prosecution rested, and it was totally out of gas. Indeed, from that point on, they were seeking a mistrial. They did not want this case to go to the jury because they were in such tough shape. But we were defending a celebrity whose name was important, and in those cases, you try to go a step beyond reasonable doubt and establish indicia of innocence. Had we been given enough time, we would have done exactly that.
Mr. Bailey, did you have any relationship with OJ in the years following the trial?
Yes, I talked with him, visited with him many times. The last time I talked with him was the night before he declined to testify in the Nevada case. And sadly, he did that because I advised him, as did many others, it will do you absolutely no good. This is not a level playing field. Indeed, we had a judge who couldn't wait to get herself on the Nancy Grace show as host. That's very discomforting.
You mentioned the goals of others who involved in the legal profession and the Nancy Grace program, but there has been a feeling, Counselor, that the OJ Simpson trial itself spawned this new genre of reality television. Now, you're a broadcaster, and we talked about in your last visit, in addition to being a noted defense attorney. Do you see where, in terms of pop culture, people are saying the OJ Simpson trial was the dawn of reality TV?
Only one person has said that. That's a writer for Vanity Fair. I never heard it before. It certainly isn't true. There was a lot of reality TV out there before 1994.
Well, in reality, your new book about cross-examination, you mentioned something earlier, Counselor, that I think is important to remember. You talked about having Christopher Darden rise to the bait. Now, in terms of your method of presentation in the courtroom, it would sound to me like cross-examination is one thing, but figuring out a way to psychologically put the other side at a disadvantage is something else. Or does it all work together? I mean, what was the mindset you would take in to a courtroom to provoke your opposing counsel?
Well, this was actually a fluke. By way of background, Darden used to come to me every time he stood up to do anything and asked me to grade his performance. And Chris always suggested an A, and I always gave him a C or a C minus. But this was a recess. I had just tried the glove on. I have a perfectly normal size 9 hand, and it was very tight on me. OJ's hands are like those of the Harlem Globetrotters. That's why he never fumbled a football. I knew they wouldn't fit the glove, and I thought, how much better if the prosecution asks him to try it on as against the defense, because we were about to do that. And that's when Darden took the bait. I said, if you don't, I will. All of that was true. He decided he better be first. It was a dumb decision. He shouldn't have done it, as he now admits.
Well, Mr. Bailey, I want to get you to grade yourself. We're going to play a clip of you questioning a witness here on the stand here during the case. Let's go ahead and play that clip.
Yes, I was. Experience would teach that any time you walk upon the ground, you may affect what's already there, right?
No, not in this case. I was careful where I walked. I was watching.
Careful where you walk.
Yes.
You know what a footprint looks like?
Yes, sir.
You do. Can it be seen with the naked eye?
Yes.
All footprints can be seen with the naked eye?
Well, if they're a footprint, if they're visible, they can be.
Don't you know that many footprints can't be seen until they're dusted with powder?
Now, as we're watching this, Mr. Bailey, there's several things you do. You take certain steps, you take your glasses off. I would imagine that none of that is done without intent. Is that the case here? Do you analyze everything you do when you're up there cross-examining a witness to make sure you have the most impact on that jury?
Well, I try to, from individual witness in individual cases. However, an experienced trial lawyer does things like that almost by instinct. If I take my glasses off, it's a signal to the witness, you better be careful. When he was talking about footprints, and he was careful in a bunch of old dried leaves behind the house, that was pure nonsense. So at that point, all I could do was commit him to as much nonsense as he was willing to sign on to, so that the real experts later on could cut his legs off.
Counselor, only about a minute remains. Are you satisfied that in the case of OJ Simpson, justice was served?
Well, no, it wasn't served. OJ has been given more punishment, and to a degree, me along with him, for getting acquitted by an American jury than anybody I've ever heard of, with the possible exception of Lizzie Borden in Massachusetts in the 1920s. The verdict was correct, but it didn't turn out to be justice because of the reaction of the news media and a large segment of the white population who insist on saying, as if they personally knew, he beat the rap.
F. Lee Bailey, we appreciate your insights. 20 years to the day after that low-speed escort, to use the counselor's term. A lot more ahead. Stay with us here on America's Forum.